One summer evening, I was visiting with my neighbor out along our pasture fence, looking out at the horses and goats. Bill says, "I could use your help with my bull tomorrow night if you're available." "Why, sure. Are we doing something Brahm's gonna like or not like?" "Oh, he ain't gonna like it." That's when I learned that we would be putting a ring into that bull's nose. Bill and I are business partners of a sort. We had bought some pasture land together and ran what amounted to a retirement home for old horses. I will be the first to tell you there is no money to be made in that business. I just thought older horses deserved some option that was better than being either put down or sold to make dog food. Bill, on the other hand, was a no-nonsense farmer. For him, every creature on the place had to pull its weight or move on somewhere else. He would have never gone into the horse retirement business on his own. But Bill needed pasture for his herd of goats, and this was a cheap way for him to get it. A few months back, Bill had bought a Brahma bull. They're the ones with the hump on their back, come out of India. And I was there the day Brahm arrived to help get him down off the truck. He was just a baby, but he was a good-looking boy with his silvery gray hide and these big floppy ears that hung straight down, kind of like an oversized hound dog. And first time I walked up on him, Brahm held my gaze, and then he gave me one of these, which I figured out later meant, "Would you scratch my ears, please?" Which I didn't mind at all, and pretty soon, anytime I went into the pasture, old Brahm would amble over, and he would wait patiently until I acknowledged it. Then he'd give me one of these, and I would commence to scratch him. This one time, I was all the way down on the ground working on a wagon, and I knew Brahm was behind me, but I wasn't paying him any attention. And apparently he got tired of waiting, because he just flopped down beside me and put that great big old head right up on my knee. So I stopped and reached over and scratched those floppy ears, and he scooted closer so I could scratch that big old hump too. Well, even as he began to grow, Brahm remained amazingly docile. When we first got him, Bill's 6-year-old daughter used to climb all over that bull like he was a jungle gym. And even now, she'd put silly hats on him and take his picture. Brahm didn't seem to mind any of it. Brahm made me remember a book I had loved as a child, The Story of Ferdinand, about this peaceful bull who wanted nothing more than to sit under his favorite tree and smell the flowers. And this is the bull that needed a ring in his nose so we could handle him. I say that, but I do understand the need for the ring. Bulls are big. Brahm weighed 1,000 pounds and he wasn't a year old. And there is a special sauce coming to Brahm and to all bulls called hormones. And when those kick in, he could go from a gentle snore to a raging hurricane like that. If you can imagine a 1,000-pound teenager living in your house, you'll get the idea. But the next evening, when I went out to the barn, Bill had everything ready to go. He had set up a small metal round pen, just big enough to hold Brahm, right next to one of the horse stalls. Then he made it into a makeshift recovery room with feed and water and some medical supplies. "All right, here's the plan. You're going to be inside the pen with Brahm. Ka-flippity blum blum boogity bop." As you see, I had stopped listening after that part about me being inside the pen. Now, I liked Brahm, but standing that close to him the first time he experienced severe pain seemed like a bad idea. "All right, when I clomp down on these pliers, it's going to punch right through his nose, and Brahm is going to buck. You just use your body weight to hold him down, and it should pass pretty quickly." Now, by my calculation, the impact my 165 pounds was likely to have on a 1,000-pound bull was working out to be pretty close to I was going to die. But when Bill led Brahm into the barn on the rope a few minutes later, I was waiting inside the round pen. Well, it was tight quarters, and it got even tighter when he closed that gate. All right, put your left hand on Brahm's left front leg. Good. Now throw your right arm across his back. I was basically giving this bull a side hug. I was also having flashbacks to my high school wrestling days. Because they both smelled exactly the same. Are you ready? Sure. When Bill clamped down on those pliers, Brahm's entire body went tense under my arms. And then Brahm rolled one big eyeball back at me with this look of complete betrayal. And then he lowered his head. His neck and shoulders clenched into one giant muscle. And then Brahm fainted. He went down like a 1,000-pound sack of meat. I barely got my left leg out from under him, or I'd have been trapped there. I wiggled out under that lowest rung, and for the next 90 seconds, Bill and I stood looking at this unconscious bull on the floor of our barn. And then he was back. Brahm rose to his feet. When Bill opened the gate, he went right into the horse stall and started eating. We had him back out in the pasture later that night. But the next morning when I went into the pasture, it was clear things had changed between Brahm and me. Instead of ambling toward me, he turned and trotted off the other direction. And the one time I tried to follow him, Brahm turned around and squared off against me. And for the very first time, he raised one hoof and gave me one of these. I never again tried to approach that bull in an open field. If I had to go in, I stayed along the fence where I had an escape route. And I always made a point to know where he was all the time. That went on for about 3 days. I was headed up to the barn, and I hear some animal out in the pasture squalling like it is being killed. Well, I ran to the fence. Down in the lower pasture, Isabel, our ornery 20-year-old donkey, had one of the goats right up in the air. It had bitten it in the middle of its back and lifted it like a four-legged suitcase. And every so often it would shake it from side to side like a baggage handler from American Airlines. Isabel! I'm over the fence and I'm running. Isabel! Well, the donkey hears me coming. She squares that backside up so she can get in a good kick if I get close. And at the last minute, she threw that goat right back in front of me, so close I tripped and fell. Well, the goat was fine. The goat got up, ran back to the safety of the other herd, and Isabel started yawning in this tone that sounded an awful lot like a belly laugh. I sat there on the ground screaming every name I could think of at that darn donkey. And from behind me, I heard a snort. Wrong. I had completely forgotten about that. Without standing, I scooted around to face him. He was no more than 15 feet away from me. If he charged, I knew I couldn't make the fence. I didn't even think I could stand up all the way. And if I stayed down on the ground, he could stomp me to death. I'd seen what a bull could do to a man at a rodeo. And then, Brahm lowered his head, and his neck and shoulders clenched into one giant muscle. And then, Brahm took a step forward, and another. When he was 3 feet away from me, he snorted again. I could feel that hot air roll across my face. And then, Brahm flopped down beside me and put that enormous head right on my knee. And I reached up with a trembling hand to scratch those floppy hairs. Brahm scooted closer so I could scratch that big old dog. Chill.